People everywhere are starting to listen to him. He's going on French, British, Italian, Japanese television.
This is the wide world of Weingarten.
Welcome back. Wide World of Weingarten, episode 18, or at least I think it's episode 18. That is the number I am going with today. It is Monday, November 8th, just about 12:30 in Los Angeles. We have baseball awards finalists finally being announced today at 3 p.m. on MLB Network. Big thing for me, and the reason I'll be following on Twitter, I refuse to actually watch the award show itself, is to find out whether or not Wander Franco is going to be an AL Rookie of the Year finalist or not. I'm not going to worry about my bet on Franco until I know if he's a finalist. The competition for the AL Rookie of the Year finalists, he has Randy Arozarena, Ryan Mountcastle, Adolis, and Luis Garcia to all fight for 3 spots. If it was me, I would have Arozarena, Franco, and Luis Garcia as the top 3, but I wouldn't be surprised if any combination of those 5 guys are in the 3 finalist spots, with the exception that Randy Arozarena is locked into one of those top 3 spots and is likely the favorite. As far as NL Rookie of the Year goes, it's Jonathan India, Trevor Rogers, and it doesn't matter who's in 3rd. India is going to be the favorite. AL Cy Young, same thing. Robbie Ray is going to win. Garrett Cole and somebody else will be the runners-up. The NL Cy Young's a bit more complicated. There's 4 guys, all who have compelling cases. Max Scherzer, Walker Buehler, Zach Wheeler, and Corbin Burns. One of those 4 is going to be left out of the finalists, and I honestly don't know who's going to win. I'm alive to all of those guys except Max Scherzer, so I'll be rooting for him to be the one left out, although I'm pretty sure he'll be one of the final 3. I'm just hoping he doesn't win it. AL MVP is Shohei Ohtani. The sooner we announce it, the sooner I could start getting those tickets processed. Looks like it's going to be another almost 2 weeks until that happens, or just slightly under 2 weeks, but it's Ohtani's award. He won it months ago. Now we just wait. The NL MVP, Bryce Harper is the favorite. The market seems to think he won. I don't necessarily disagree. I saw some MLB.com straw polls or whatever that said he got the most first place votes last time I saw. I assume the 3 finalists are going to be Harper, Juan Soto, and Fernando Tatis Jr. If I had to guess the final order of finish, it's going to be the same. Can Soto win? Yes, he could win. Anything could happen. There's all sorts of reasons why he could have potentially beaten Harper. But as far as most of the stuff I've read and seen, I would say that the smart money is on Harper, and I would be shocked. It would be an upset if Soto did win. I think even as elite as Soto's numbers were in the minds of the voters, he just needed to do slightly more down the stretch, and he didn't. He just didn't do, like did it come down to 1 home run or 2 home runs? No, but another 2 home runs would have helped. He just didn't do enough. Unfortunately, also being on a last place team really hurt him, but there's nothing I could do there. So if he wins, it's cool, but I'm not expecting it. So we're gonna just hold off on more award stuff till we see what's going on tomorrow after the announcement. I'll talk more about this tomorrow. In college football, it was another really good college football weekend for me. It sort of alternates for me whether or not I have a good college football season or a bad college football season. It's inversely related to my NFL season. So if I have a good college football season, I have a bad NFL season, vice versa. Usually for some reason it's not both at the same time, but I have been more selective this year with college stuff, and it has been very successful. I know there's weekday Maction coming up on Tuesday and Wednesday. I don't bet Mac football anymore. Totals are always too high, and I don't like these midweek shootouts, and the market is so competitive. There's a lot of people who specialize in the Mac stuff, and they know the injury news, and they're way ahead of everything on everything than I am. So it just doesn't fit my schedule anymore. And a lot of the things I focus on in college football, like alternate unders, I can't do with MAC stuff because they don't go under. So I won't have anything on the MAC this week, unfortunately, but there's a lot of people you could find on Twitter that love talking about the MAC. You know, there's plenty of people who can fill in on the MAC for me. A lot of what I've been betting and winning on lately in college football is unders. Games like Alabama or Ole Miss games where they have really high totals in the high 60s or low 70s, a 72, a 68, a 66. Those are really high for SEC games, and it really only takes a couple slow drives or slowing down tempo a little bit, or Alabama tends to not let teams score a ton against them for those games to go under. Ole Miss versus Liberty was a game I liked this week. I bet it a couple different weeks, and I just assumed that with all of Ole Miss's injuries, they wouldn't have pressed going into the fourth quarter. It wouldn't have run up the score, and they didn't. I think Liberty actually won the second half. There was some late spread drama a little bit, but not a ton. The whole second half was kind of slower tempo wise. And if you look at Ole Miss, they've only scored one second half touchdown in the last 3 weeks, I think. And when you're playing Liberty and Auburn's decent, but those are it's not great, especially with their injuries. Ole Miss, Ole Miss doesn't hit these high totals every week. I think they're inflated because people just see Lane Kiffin and think he's running some up-tempo, super turbo offense. This is all my way of saying that I really like the under in the Ole Miss game this week. I think it's 55.5. I'm betting that. I'm going to bet that as soon as I finish recording this, so it'll be in before you hear it. Alabama under 67.5 this week versus New Mexico State is a huge mismatch. It's not in any way comparable to when Ole Miss plays Liberty this last week, and at least Liberty has some talent. Malik Wilson. New Mexico State is completely overmatched versus Alabama. This is the kind of game where you wonder, is the total going to be 6.5? Is it going to be 3.5 team total for New Mexico State? Is Alabama going to win 66-0 or 60-0? When do they call off the dogs? Really just a question of how much they score before halftime. I could see them really taking it easy in the second half by the time they get to that point. So Alabama under 67.5 is a bet I like this weekend, but not as much as the Ole Miss under at 55.5. That's my favorite bet so far. We're back, Wide World of Weingarten, going over the NFL. It was a crazy week 9, a lot of upsets. Favorites went 0-7 against the spread, 2-5 straight up. So congratulations to all the bookies who won. I know it's been a rough couple of weeks. You got all your money back, I'm sure, and then some. One of the big games early, the early slate, the Ravens 34, Vikings 31. It was another tough loss for the Vikings. I think Zimmer is probably on his way out in Minnesota, and the Vikings, again, not being able to hold a 24-10 lead in the third quarter. It just makes me think that Kirk Cousins and Mike Zimmer are not the combination to lead this franchise to a championship. Lamar Jackson, on the other hand, is the guy who could lead the Ravens to a championship. He had 266 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. Led the Ravens in rushing with 21 carries for 120 yards. I think it was the third most carries by an NFL quarterback in recent history. I don't know about all time, but that 21 carries, a lot of carries for a quarterback. Jackson is currently 6th in the NFL in rushing yards. He's still, to me, Lamar Jackson still has the best MVP odds on the board, 10-1, 12-1. Those are the market prices today. When you look at the guys who are ahead of him in rushing, it's Derrick Henry, Nick Chubb, Dalvin Cook, and Zeke Elliott. That's it. Those are the only guys who not the guys who are ahead of him this year, but they're also the guys who have more rushing yards since Lamar Jackson in general, since Jackson's been the starting QB in the NFL since I think we're talking like week 11, 2018. So really impressive stuff from Lamar Jackson again. Comeback win. I think he has the best MVP odds. This was his 10th career 100-yard rushing game in the regular season, ties him with Michael Vick. I would much rather bet Lamar Jackson here 10-1, 12-1 than Tom Brady on coming off bye week at plus 350. I didn't think Tom Brady's stats were that impressive in his last loss. I would bet Lamar Jackson here is basically what I'm getting at if you haven't picked up on that yet. Patriots 24, Panthers 6. Patriots are 4-0 on the road, 5-0 on the season. They're alive for a playoff spot, and really they're only a couple of bad fumbles early in the season away from potentially being 7-2 as opposed to 5-4. Mac Jones, pedestrian, 139 yards with a touchdown and an interception. He was 12 for 18. Wasn't asked to do a lot against the Panthers, but he didn't need to do a lot. It was a blowout. Sam Darnold, 3 interceptions and 33 dropbacks. It's becoming clear he is not the guy in Carolina. Patriots 5-4, I think, excuse me, is the big story. Like I said, they're a couple fumbles away from being 7-2, and there's clearly something here with this team, even with the rookie quarterback. The Pats-Browns game this weekend, Week 10, is all of a sudden a pretty good game for two borderline playoff teams getting to test their playoff potential against each other. The Patriots still have 2 games left against the Bills, and they're only 1 game behind for the AFC East title. So that's kind of a thing. The Bills are not guaranteed to win this division, and the Patriots definitely have a chance. The Browns beat the Bengals 41-16. Same old Bengals. As soon as we start talking about them, they proceed to lose 2 games in a row. They compounded losing to the Jets by getting blown out by the Browns. Baker Mayfield is playing with multiple injuries. He still went 14 for 21 for 218 yards, 2 touchdowns. Chubb ran for 137 yards, 2 touchdowns. Pretty solid offensive performance. The team, the Browns, clearly do not miss Odell Beckham. Jamar Chase for the Bengals had 6 receptions for 49 yards, no touchdowns on 13 targets. So clearly he's going to get a majority of the targets going forward. But they had a nice defensive plan for him this week and shut him down. He's still the offensive rookie of the year favorite. Mac Jones getting wins, having 5 wins is really good for him, and it's a compelling argument for why he deserves to be the offensive rookie of the year. But Jamar Chase will remain the favorite as long as his numbers stay where they are. Zach Taylor, who I touted up as he went from 35-1 to 10-1 for Coach of the Year, has taken a step back. Kevin Stefanski, who I talked about before, who circa had at 175-1 2 weeks ago, 125-1 last week. Starting to think maybe I should have bet that. I might still bet it if it's remotely close going forward when Circa opens their numbers later this week. But Stefanski won last year, and it's very hard to see any coach winning back-to-back Coach of the Year awards. So not super into that. I'm just making note of what could be a long number at Circa when it comes out later this week. Myles Garrett had 1.5 sacks, has 12 on the season. He's 3 clear of the guys in second place. Really making his case for Defensive Player of the Year. I personally still think Aaron Donald is the best defensive player on the planet, and he deserves the award until further notice, but voters might disagree, and Myles Garrett is definitely making a compelling case. With apologies to Trevon Diggs, who had a bad week. The Broncos 30, Cowboys 16. It was actually 30-0 until the final 4 minutes. Cowboys scored 2 garbage touchdowns. Very impressive road win for the Denver Broncos. And last week I said they were throwing in the towel, trading Von Miller. Looks like I was wrong there. I'm occasionally wrong. There was a report on the Denver radio last week that there was this whole issue about a Halloween party in Denver that Von Miller plans that was going to cost a lot of money, and he was asking other players to chip in, including rookies who don't make a lot of money and were all of a sudden being asked to chip in to host a party they didn't even really want to go to or something. It looks like that might have been the straw that broke the proverbial camel's back and forced Von Miller out of Denver. Another Broncos player confirmed that report on a Denver radio show that it was a true story. So it sounds like that had something to do with the Broncos deciding to move on from Miller and trying to get something out of him while they still could, getting picks from him. It did not look like the Broncos missed Von Miller at all. This was their best game of the season. And the AFC West pretty interesting right now. All of a sudden, the Raiders, Chargers, both 5-3. The Chiefs and the Broncos, both 5-4. The Chiefs and Raiders play each other Sunday night. The Raiders are in an absolute state of turmoil right now. It's hard to imagine the roster is going to be full of guys playing hard going forward. They lost to the Giants this week, which we'll talk about in a minute. But the Broncos are absolutely not out of the division race right after I said they were. The whole AFC West, the whole AFC itself is up for grabs. This is the first time Denver will be above 509 games into the season since 2016. I'll break down the AFC division race and the AFC Week 10 games later this week. Mike McCarthy was one of the favorites for Coach of the Year going into this weekend, which I thought was silly at the time, but he's definitely dropped off now after this loss, and hopefully he stays there. I just don't see McCarthy winning Coach of the Year. If I did want a veteran coach, I would definitely bet Bill Belichick over Mike McCarthy, especially given the rookie quarterback constraint. But I can't see voters voting for Mike McCarthy, so I'm glad they lost and got that out of the way. Micah Parsons, he's gone odds on as the favorite for defensive rookie of the year. Can't say I disagree. He had 10 tackles, 2.5 sacks, 3 tackles for losses, and a loss to the Broncos this weekend. Can't hate on that. It is going to cost me some money, as I have peppered over the defensive rookie of the year board some other guys, but at this point I think it's going to take an injury to Micah Parsons to likely lose the defensive rookie of the year. He's the favorite as we are approaching the halfway point of the regular season. Trevon Diggs got torched a couple times, including Tim Patrick's 44-yard touchdown. He's gone 2 weeks without an interception. He's going to need to have a couple more interceptions to jump back into the Defensive Player of the Year race. On a serious contender note, he's probably dropped to 3rd to 5th place really at this point, which not surprising, but still plenty of time. Jaguars 9, Bills 6. Killed survivor pools everywhere. I had some Jaguars second half. I don't play survivor pools mostly because a lot of the other professionals and people I'm friendly with are better than me at these pools, and I know many pool winners, survivor pool winners. I know contest winners in Vegas and other places. And it's cool that I'm friends with them, but I just realized that there's no point in competing in these pools with people who are better than me. So like instead of doing the Circa Survivor pool, I buy Gucci shoes, and I still have those shoes. And when I give money to Circa, I usually just get a hat or a shirt, and I have a lot of gambling shirts, so I'll take the shoes at this point. Josh Allen was the MVP favorite coming into this week. He went 31 for 47 for 264 yards, 2 touchdowns. Everybody has bad games every once in a while. That's just the way the NFL goes. Any given Sunday sort of thing. Dropped him in the MVP a bit. I think he probably stays the MVP favorite with a bounce back performance versus the Jets this week. But like I've been saying personally, I wouldn't bet on him. I would bet on Josh Allen. I'm sorry. I would bet on Lamar Jackson, not Josh Allen. The Jaguars' Josh Allen, though, he was the guy this week, and he was the man. He recovered a fumble, had a sack, an interception. He'll likely be the defensive player of the week. I think the Bills are potentially vulnerable to not win the division. I would really like to see the Patriots step up and win the division. mostly just because I don't like the Bills and I don't want to see them in the Super Bowl. I think the AFC is wide open, and we'll talk more about AFC futures this week. I need to dive into the available futures markets and see what's going on. Dolphins 17, Texans 9. The Texans were held without a touchdown again this week, even with Tyrod Taylor throwing 43 times. Both of these teams are out of the running this year, and they aren't really going to make any impact on the second half of the season, so not much to say about them. Falcons 27, Saints 25. The Saints are trying to figure out their quarterback situation without Jameis Winston. Kyle Pitts held to 3 catches for 62 yards on 7 targets. Teams are game planning for him more, but he's a legit weapon. He's not going to win Offensive Rookie of the Year, but he's a guy I'm going to keep looking at for props. I like the 2+ touchdown props on him lately. I didn't bet it this week. Didn't bet a ton on Sunday. Mostly just small stuff and props. The Giants 23, Raiders 16. Raiders rallied for a big win after firing John Gruden, but I think their season's fallen apart. Besides their former wide receiver who's on his way to prison, I think they just released Damon Arnett, one of their other first-round picks who's been awful on the field. You just can't win in the NFL when you miss on as much talent in the draft as the Raiders have, and it's going to catch up. It's a team that's depleted of talent. It has bad culture. It's just bad situation, and they're going to play down to the level of their competition. They're not winners, and I think they'd be lucky to get 2 more wins the rest of the season. Big game this weekend for them and for the Chiefs. Loser will be at the bottom of the AFC West, most likely. So let's see what they do this weekend. I think it's going to be one of those situations where the Chiefs take lopsided money like they do every week. Then the Chargers beat the Eagles 27-24. I don't know if the story here is the Chargers won or the story is the Chargers barely beat the Eagles. 356 passing yards from Justin Herbert. Puts him back in the second tier of the MVP race. Brandon Staley re-solidified himself as one of the front runners for Coach of the Year. Obviously still behind Cliff Kingsbury at this point. The Eagles looked better this week. They looked better than they have in past weeks, but I'm still not sure Jalen Hurts is the guy I would build around. I could see both sides to that argument, but just personally, I think they're going to need to find another quarterback via the draft or wherever. It's not going to be the guy long term, Jalen Hurts. Chiefs 13, Packers 7. I said Packers +7 was an overreaction, and I think I was right. The score was slightly misleading. The Packers missed 2 field goals in the first half, muffed a punt to give the Chiefs the ball back in a 10-0 lead. Jordan Love didn't look great, but he was 19 for 34 for 190 yards with a fourth quarter touchdown pass and an interception to cover the spread in his first career start. Patrick Mahomes was only 20 for 37 for 166 yards with a touchdown. So relative to Patrick Mahomes, the best quarterback in football, it wasn't that bad of a start for Jordan Love's, first career start on the road in Kansas City, especially with the Packers not doing him any favors with the missed field goals and the muffed punts. Encouraging stuff from the Packers defense versus Mahomes. But at this point, I'm starting to think that Mahomes is playing with some sort of lingering injury that's affecting his performance, because these are consistent substandard performances that even with the constraints of his offensive line and everything around him, he should be doing slightly better. But we'll find out Sunday night versus the Raiders which one of these AFC West teams is going to be on the bottom of the playoff hunt. Green Bay, they could afford to lose this game, and they did. They could have won though. I mean, they really could have won. Those 2 missed field goals came in huge. They had the ball late. They should be encouraged by Jordan Love's performance slightly. Not obviously enough to play him next week. It's Aaron Rodgers' team the minute he comes back, but the takeaway here is that Green Bay has to clean up their special teams. Mahomes and Rodgers are both not going to contend for the MVP. I think Rodgers missing the game is going to hurt him. Mahomes, having comparable stat lines to Jordan Love is not going to do anything for anybody. So both of these guys are out. Thanks for playing. Cardinals 31, 49ers 17. This was the weirdest score of the week. Colt McCoy subbed for Kyler Murray and went 22 for 26 with a touchdown. James Conner scored 3 times. The Cardinals won without Kyler Murray, Hopkins, J.J. Watt, A.J. Green. Solid win for the Cardinals. Really bumped Cliff Kingsbury up for the Coach of the Year. A division road win by 2 touchdowns with 430-plus yards of offense. While missing your 2 best players, will definitely do that. I had the 49ers plus 8.5 and some Wong teasers I took last Monday. Those never had a chance. I think the Raiders closed minus 5.5 or something. So, sometimes you get the best number you could get in the best situation and nothing matters. That was just one of those cases. Kyler Murray's MVP odds dropped a bit with being out this week. Kind of similar situation for me with Aaron Rodgers. I just don't see these guys winning MVP being one game worth of stat production behind these other quarterbacks who are going to put up elite numbers. I would put Lamar Jackson ahead of Kyler Murray right now. They're close to each other, but I think Lamar is still my guy. Kingsbury will be the favorite for Coach of the Year this week. I think that's probably a better bet than the Kyler Murray MVP stuff. We'll talk about Offensive Player of the Year and whether or not that's going to end up being a quarterback consolation prize for the second best quarterback, or if somebody like Cooper Kupp is going to win it. Wide receivers don't historically run away with Offensive Player of the Year, so we'll look into that later this week as well. The Titans upset the Rams 28-16. The Rams took a 3-0 lead into the second quarter, and then all of a sudden, two quick Matt Stafford turnovers later, it was 14-3, then 21-3 before halftime, and then it was basically over. The Rams cut it to 21-9 early in the fourth, but that was as close as they got. Stafford will take a hit on the MVP odds because of this. Sean McVay will take a hit on Coach of the Year, and the Rams are potentially headed to the wild card as opposed to winning the division with Arizona ahead of them right now. The Rams have a very bad, disadvantageous schedule coming up. They have back-to-back road games, San Francisco and Green Bay. Fortunately, there's a bye week in between there, so it's not true back-to-back road games, but travel is never fun in the NFL, especially Green Bay coming to the cold part of the season. After that, they get the Jaguars at home, which you just saw is not necessarily an automatic win. Probably going to be a win, but not automatic. And then another road game at the Cardinals. So 3 road games in 5 weeks, not great. They just added Von Miller to the defensive line, so that'll be cool. It's an interesting spot going to San Francisco, who's facing their potential 9th straight loss at home. The Rams really have no favors being done to them with their second half schedule. 5 road games in 8 weeks with 2 back-to-backs, although the first back-to-back has a bye week in between, so it's not a true back-to-back, but that's 5 weeks of travel and 8 weeks of playing in the NFL. It's a lot. The Titans did not miss Derrick Henry, which kind of would kill any MVP conversation for me. He was, it didn't matter that he wasn't playing. You can't be the MVP if your team blows out other teams when you don't play. Titans, potential number 1 seed in the AFC, so that's a thing. We'll go through the NFL awards and future stuff probably tomorrow. Just waiting for more places to post, and we'll go over circus stuff later in the week. College basketball starts this week. It's a sport I don't really bet that much anymore. I used to bet a lot more college basketball, but this well-known professional gambler who goes by Dale Doback, he has other aliases as well that you might be familiar with, but he once said something that nobody over the age of 30 should bet college basketball. I kind of agree with that. I'm slightly over the age of 30 now, so I don't bet it. I don't bet it because I'm over at the age of 30. I just don't find it as fun or enjoyable anymore. It's also a very competitive market, and I like to kind of fish where others aren't fishing, as opposed to being first to market in these things. What what I have had success in, is focusing on the Big West and doing a lot of first half, second half stuff. I might do that this year. Probably will do that just because there isn't much else to do that time of year. So look forward to that. It'll be when the conference stuff starts, though. So I probably won't be betting much college basketball, but we might talk about it. Might talk about all sorts of things. So never say never. The golf this weekend was not particularly exciting. Victor Hovland won in Mexico by 4 strokes. Maverick McNeely got up as high as fourth on Sunday before the later guys teed off. He finished tied for 11th at -14. Shot all 4 rounds in the 60s this week, but wasn't enough to contend. He was nowhere close to Victor Hovland's 23 under. Grayson Sigg made the cut, shot 10 under. He'll keep getting money from me at big odds, but he was not a contender this week. Did make the cut, so good for him. Thomas Pieters won in Europe. Peters, I don't actually know how to say his last name. He was one of the favorites. Wasn't particularly surprising to see him win. It was a crap field event and $1.5 million, so whatever. Minwoo Lee, he was all right. He was up near the top. Wasn't really a contender. Did get a top 10, which reminds me, I really need to focus more on the top 5, 10, 20 market. I am identifying guys who are playing well, if they're not necessarily winning. My hope is to incorporate top 5, 10, 20 stuff into my betting more by January, when the PGA season kicks off in Hawaii. This week, the Euro Tour heads to Dubai to wrap up their season. This is like the early event. I think they're playing back-to-back events in Dubai. So this event is like $1.5 million prize pool. It'll go up to like $9 million, I think, for the season finale. There's a warm-up event, weaker field. Dean Burmeister, he won the PGA South African Championship by 2 strokes last weekend on the Sunshine Tour. If he can carry over his form from South Africa to Dubai, he'll be on the list of guys for me. I threw $100 on him at 30-1 this morning, with nothing available at bigger shops like Sicker or Chris. I'm gonna wait to see what numbers pop up. So it was only a small bet, a very small bet for me. PGA Tour is in Houston this week for the Houston Open. I have not bet Maverick McNeely yet at 33-1 odds, but I likely will. Again, I'm just waiting for other places to open to compare numbers. Brooks Koepka 25-1 to 30-1 is interesting. I think that's, you can get big numbers sometimes on prominent guys who are returning to form in these events. It's worth a look. Farther down the list, I didn't see anything in the 100-1 range to get my attention on Monday. Hopefully I'll see something tomorrow. $7.5 million prize pool in Houston this week. I always just like to compare between the Euro Tour and the PGA Tour, what the prize pools are, just so you could see, obviously the PGA Tour is always where it's at, $1.5 million compared to $7.5 million, always going to draw better talent. But it's always important to know what they're playing for, to know how these guys, how much they care, or what they're playing for. Then we'll dive more into the golf tomorrow. I have more work to do to get up to speed on all these markets, but thank you for listening. I need some water. Been talking for about 34 minutes, so thank you. I'll be back tomorrow.